My mother had been dead 3 days before anyone noticed. The coroner ruled it merciful, a stroke in the kitchen, sudden and absolute, dead before she struck the floor. By the time word reached me, only one town away, she had already been removed. The undertakers had done their work. They always did their work. When I entered her house, nothing of death remained. The kitchen tiles shone, the copper pans were polished and rehung. The air smelled faintly of lilac and beeswax instead of bile and stillness. The trash was gone, the laundry folded. A candle burned in a ceramic dish near the sink, and beside it lay a condolence card embossed with King William's crest. The house looked staged. Too staged. Near the back door, where the old wood met the garden stones, I noticed a thin black ribbon along the threshold. For a moment, I thought it was dirt left behind by careless boots. When I leaned closer, it separated into movement. Ants. Not the red biting kind we used to curse in summer. These were small, lacquer black, moving in disciplined silence. They did not scatter when the light hit them. They flowed around one another with mechanical precision, as though exchanging information too subtle for me to perceive. They were coming from beneath the doorframe, and they were carrying something pale between them. A grain of rice, I thought. No. Smaller. Translucent. I stood up before I could examine it further. The undertakers had cleaned everything. There was no reason for insects. I closed the door. The funeral home stood beyond Polizzo's city boundary as required by law. The living were not permitted to house their dead within the walls. Too many stories, too many histories, too many hauntings. King William preferred his cities orderly. At the funeral home, instead of wearing my mom's shawl, like I wished, I dressed in black. Veil drawn. Around me, women did the same. The men wore carved death masks polished to a dull shine. The undertaker wore the beaked mask of their order, goggles black and unreadable. When the sun finally surrendered to the horizon, my mother was brought forth. She lay upon a golden litter. Her face was restored to youth, wrinkles erased, gray hairs died away. Her lips curved in a familiar smile. She smelled of flowers. Too many flowers. It was perfect. It was wrong. 4 elder weavers, her mentors, her friends, her elders, carried her. I was permitted only to lead. We moved through the streets after dark. Bells rang in uneven rhythm. Some sang. Others groaned. The cemetery gates were locked until the undertaker handed me the key. I pushed them open. Tradition required that I find the grave myself, so I walked, weaving between the rows of stone, the procession breathing behind me as one organism. I found it beneath a gnarled tree whose trunk twisted like a body arrested mid-scream. The grave stood open. Silence fell. Even the wind seemed to hesitate beneath that tree. In the moonlight, her body appeared doubled. A faint after-image hovered above the flesh, translucent and patient. I blinked and it vanished. Blinked again and it returned. Tears blurred my sight. The undertaker's hand rested on my shoulder. I reached into my purse and withdrew the coins. Their weight startled me. "I love you," I whispered, placing 1 coin over each eye. Silver caught the moon. As I stepped back, something brushed the hem of my dress. I glanced down. Ants. Dozens of them emerged from a crack in the soil near the lip of the grave. The same lacquer black bodies, the same unnatural coordination. They moved not toward the food laid out for the procession, not toward the pig prepared for sacrifice. They moved toward my mother, toward the exposed earth around her. One of the weavers shifted her foot and crushed several without noticing. A faint, sharp scent arose from their broken bodies. Not quite vinegar, not quite resin. The ants did not scatter. They flowed around the disturbance and continued. The life blanket was unfurled, a blanket she was weaving since before the dam was built. Gifts laid upon her, a pomegranate, a wedding ring, a child's movie ticket, a heater with a flame on it. The pig was cooked. A plate set upon her chest before she was lowered. We were not permitted to touch the dirt. As the gravediggers began their work, I noticed the ants again. They were descending into the grave along the rope fibers used to lower her. Orderly, purposeful, as if returning home. I said nothing. We ate. Grief softened into memory over pork and wine. Laughter cracked under its own weight. Stories surfaced like air bubbles from deep water. Eventually, they left. The undertaker lingered. "Leave before dawn," they reminded me. Then I was alone. Time dissolved. When I finally stood, the eastern sky had begun to pale. The air felt cooler, quieter. Then I felt it. A presence. I turned. She stood behind me on the path. Naked. Exact. My face, my body, my red-rimmed eyes. She tilted her head as I tilted mine, but reversed. I raised my hand, she raised hers. No tattoos marked her wrists. "What are you?" I asked. "What are you?" she croaked. Her voice lagged. "Are you a threat?" Threat? Does the black moon howl? The left side of her face sagged. Her jaw opened too wide. Black tar bled from her mouth, thick and glossy. It streamed over her chin and chest. Bubbles formed at her nostrils. The smell reached me. Iron and sap and something fungal. She took one step toward me. Her skin loosened, not tearing, detaching, as though something beneath had lost cohesion. She collapsed. Bones cracked and softened into granular dust before striking the soil. The mass liquefied, sinking into the grass. For a moment, the ground writhed. The ants emerged in numbers too great to count. They swarmed the dissolving matter in silent efficiency. No frenzy, no chaos. They moved as one organism, covering the blackened residue, breaking it down, carrying fragments below the soil. Within moments, nothing remained. Not skin, not bone, not even a stain. Only disturbed grass. The ants receded into the earth as though pulled by a single invisible thread. The raven called again beyond the wall, and beneath my grief, beneath my exhaustion, something else settled into place. Recognition, not of the creature, but of hunger. The house did not stay quiet after the funeral. Grief draws people in. It gives them permission to knock. They came with covered dishes and bottles of wine, guild sisters with red hands from dye, library volunteers who still smelled faintly of paper dust, neighbors who had not spoken to me in years. They sat at my mother's table and told stories. Between stories, they brought news. The ants were the first topic that felt safe. "They're everywhere now," Mrs. Adler said, brushing crumbs from her skirt. but only in the soil. It was true. The ants did not invade kitchens. They did not swarm trash bins. They did not crawl across plates or hands. They threaded through garden beds, along fence lines, between hedges. Black lines moving in deliberate geometry. They dismantled rose bushes from below, hollowed decorative shrubs, stripped roots clean, while leaving leaves untouched until the plant simply collapsed. They cleared my entire herb patch, one man said. Didn't touch the thyme hanging by the window, just the roots. The city issued a statement. No known threat to human health. Pest control had assessed the colonies. No need for alarm. No one seemed particularly alarmed. The ants avoided food. They avoided flesh. They seemed almost selective. So the town tolerated them. The missing children were spoken of differently, more quietly, more cautiously. They're running a school, Mrs. Adler said one afternoon, as if repeating a line she'd been given. That's what the constables told us. A school? I asked. For the ones who wander, she replied. Said it's for their safety. Temporary relocation while they assess the cemetery situation. She did not sound convinced. 3 children from her street were gone. No letters, no sightings, no proof of life. Just reassurances. The constables increased patrols, set up checkpoints near the industrial district, closed the cemetery entirely for structural review. They discouraged rumor. They discouraged gathering in large groups. They insisted everything was under control. But the number of small animals in town increased. At first, it felt seasonal. Rabbits near the schoolyard, squirrels clustered along telephone wires, stray kittens appearing in doorways. But they did not behave like wild things. They did not bolt when doors opened. They did not scatter at shouting. They lingered near specific houses. Outside the Alder home, a rabbit began sitting beside the mailbox every afternoon. Outside Morella's house, one of the missing, a gray squirrel perched on the windowsill for hours at a time. A father arrived at my door one evening, carrying a cardboard carrier. Inside was a kitten, white fur, green eyes, silent. My daughter's been gone 5 days, he said. His voice sounded worn thin. Constables say she's enrolled in the temporary program. They won't tell us where it is. He hesitated. This thing showed up in her bed the night she disappeared. The kitten did not meow. It stared at him with unnerving steadiness. Does it eat? I asked. Yes. Does it scratch? No. Does it bleed? He frowned. I don't know. Neither of us reached into the box. The ants had established highways by then, thin black rivers flowing in and out of foundation cracks. I crouched one evening and watched them closely. Each carried something, not crumbs, not seeds, pale fragments, organic, soft. They moved toward the direction of the cemetery, not in frantic swarms, in lanes, structured, as if assembling something below ground. The Parks Department removed 3 trees along the cemetery wall, citing rot. When one trunk split under tension, it revealed not decay, but smooth channels carved through the heartwood. Ant work. The cemetery remained closed. More children disappeared. The constables repeated the same explanation. Temporary school, protective relocation, administrative discretion. No parents were permitted to visit. No location was disclosed. The language shifted from missing to transferred. It was meant to calm. It did not. At night, I began noticing the animals more clearly. A fox sleeping beneath the altar porch. 2 rabbits pressed together under a street lamp, their eyes reflecting amber light. They did not forage, they watched, always toward houses with darkened children's bedrooms. I walked the perimeter of my mother's house nightly. The ants were thicker now, the lines darker. When I pressed my palm to the soil, I felt a faint vibration beneath it. Movement, depth, intent. I remembered the creature that had worn my face dissolving into the cemetery grass. The ants emerging instantly, not to devour, but to collect. Not scavengers, processors, infrastructure. Something was being built beneath Polizzo, or something was trying to reconstruct itself. When Mrs. Alder visited again, her voice broke mid-sentence. "They won't let us see them," she said. "If it's truly a school, why don't they let us see them?" I did not answer, because I didn't believe there was a school. I don't know if I ever believed that there was a school. That night, I unlocked my mother's study. She had kept contracts written in careful ink, guild ties, foreign correspondences, numbers not meant for public exchange. One was written in red wax. Malinali Akadal Mchikotl, Hunter. I remembered her saying once, "If something strange feels ecological rather than spiritual, you don't call a priest. You call a hunter." I powered on her own relay device, a sort of internet-connected computer before the internet. The screen flickered before stabilizing. I typed. Subject: Unclassified biological anomaly, Polizzo vespucci. Observed phenomena: coordinated ant colonies exhibiting selective organic degradation, roots, structural cellulose, biological waste. Increased small mammal population demonstrating abnormal docility and location. Fixation near residence of minors reported transferred by constabulary. Children removed under claim of temporary schooling. No parental visitation permitted. No facility location disclosed. Cemetery closed under Crown order. Surrounding flora exhibiting internal structural compromise consistent with insect tunneling. Prior incident: attempted human phenotypic replication observed. Instability resulted in rapid biomass breakdown and ant collection response. I paused, then added. Assessment: not spiritual, likely adaptive morphogenic organism, utilizing distributed insect infrastructure. Potential escalation risk. Request investigation, discretion critical. I sealed the transmission. Outside, beneath the porch light, the white fox curled at the edge of the alder yard. Its eyes were open, watching. Mchikotl entered Polizzo before dawn. He wore no uniform and bore no banner. His traveling cloak was dark and unadorned, though beneath it, the leather harness across his chest held something long and rigid wrapped in oilcloth. His hair was braided and bound at the nape. His expression, unreadable. He did not go to the constables. He went first to the cemetery wall. The gates were chained. A royal seal hardened the lock. Beyond the iron bars, the grass nearest the perimeter showed uneven color, patches of sallow green, roots exposed where soil had thinned. He crouched. At the base of the wall, ants moved in deliberate lanes. He did not disturb them at first. He watched, counted the streams, timed their intervals, noted the bidirectional traffic. Only after several minutes did he reach into his satchel and withdraw a small brass lens. He lowered it carefully. Each ant carried matter, not seeds, not leaf fragments. Something pale, something soft. He pinched one between gloved fingers and examined it, turned it toward the light, released it. The ant rejoined its line without hesitation. He pressed his palm to the soil, closed his eyes, waited. There, a faint vibration. Not random, layered. He opened his eyes and stood. Across the street, two rabbits sat beneath a street lamp long after the sun had risen. Neither grazed. Both faced inward toward the town. He watched them for a long moment. Then he began walking. By mid-morning, he had circled the cemetery twice. He did not take notes. He did not speak. He observed. At 3 houses, animal density exceeded what seasonable migration would explain. At 7 foundations, ant ingress followed structural cracks rather than food scent. He placed a crumb of bread in one ant lane. The line divided around it, untouched. He placed a shaving of cured meat. The ants adjusted the route without interest. He placed a thin sliver of untreated wood. The ants paused briefly, antennae touching the fragment before continuing. He removed the wood. He said nothing. When he approached my mother's house, I saw him from the window. He did not knock immediately. He crouched beside the foundation stones and watched the ants moving along the mortar seam. He placed something small in their path, a fragment of polished black stone. The ants' line faltered. For the first time, they hesitated. The formation broke, not chaotically, but in avoidance. A clean arc formed around the stone, as though an invisible boundary had been drawn. He retrieved the fragment and stood. Only then did he knock. "You called?" he said when I opened the door. His voice was low, steady, without an accent I could easily place. "Yes." He looked past me briefly, scanning the interior without stepping inside. "How many?" he asked. I blinked. "How many what?" "Children." I swallowed. 7, that we know of. "Returned?" "No." He nodded once. "Show me the cemetery." The constables watched us, but did not intervene. Michikotl did not acknowledge them. At the spot beneath the gnarled tree where my duplicate had dissolved, he crouched again. "Describe it," he said. I did. The mirroring, the delay in speech, the tar, the collapse. He did not interrupt. When I finished, he touched the soil lightly with 2 fingers. He lifted them and examined the residue. "Smell," he said, offering his hand. I leaned closer. Iron, sap, something fungal. He nodded faintly. "How long after dissolution did the ants appear?" he asked. "Seconds." "Before or after bone collapse?" "After." He absorbed that. He removed from his satchel a small object wrapped in cloth. When he unwrapped it, I saw an obsidian arrowhead. Black, flawless, sharp enough to split light. He pressed its tip into the soil. The ants nearest the contact point recoiled in a perfect circle. A boundary formed around the stone. He held it there, watched. Then he withdrew it. The ants resumed their line once the stone was gone. He wrapped the arrowhead again without comment. We stood in silence for several seconds. "The animals," he said at last. "Where do they gather most?" I pointed towards the alder house. He followed my gesture. A fox lay beneath the porch, but its eyes were open, watching him. He watched it in return. He did not approach. He did not speak to it. After a long pause, he turned back to me. "Your dam," he said. "When was it completed?" The question startled me. 3 years ago. How many hectares of forest flooded? I don't know. He nodded slowly, as if confirming something internal. Has the soil composition changed since? Yes, I said. The lower gardens fail every spring now. Another nod, silence again. He was assembling something, but he did not share it. Finally, he spoke. They are not eating, he said. They are building. My chest tightened. Building what? He met my eyes for the first time fully. A body, he said. Nothing more. The fox beneath the porch rose and took one cautious step forward. Behind the cemetery wall, the faint vibration deepened. Michikotl adjusted the oilcloth bundle across his back. We must interrupt the construction, he said calmly. Will you kill it? I asked. He did not answer immediately. He looked toward the cemetery soil, then toward the fox, then back at me. We'll see, he said. And that was all. We went at night. Michikotl insisted. Daylight flattens movement, he said. Night reveals structure. The constables had reduced patrols after midnight. Officially, no one was permitted near the cemetery. Unofficially, the Crown had grown tired of guarding a locked gate no one dared to enter. Michikotl didn't approach the gate. He approached the outer wall. From his satchel, he removed a narrow tool of polished obsidian, fitted into a wooden handle. Not an arrow. Not yet. He pressed it into a seam in the mortar. The ants recoiled instantly. The stone above the seam shifted, not shattered, yielded, as if something beneath had hollowed it long ago. A narrow opening revealed itself behind the loosened stone. The earth beyond breathed. Cool air exhaled from below. After you, he said. I stared at him. You're serious? Yes. You expect me to crawl into that? I expect you to decide. The fox watched from across the street. I ducked into the opening. The tunnel was not chaotic. It was engineered. Smooth walls, even curvature, layered chambers branching with purpose. The ants flowed along recessed channels in the walls like veins. They did not swarm us. They parted around Michikotl's presence when he lowered a fragment of obsidian near the ground. How deep? I whispered. Not far, he replied. Not yet. The soil grew warmer as we descended. And then I heard it. Breathing. Not human, not animal, something slower, layered. We entered a chamber large enough to stand in. The ceiling arched naturally, supported by roots exposed like rib bones. At the center of the chamber lay something I could not at first comprehend. And then I realized we were beneath the tree that sat at my mother's gravesite. In the center of the chamber, near where I thought my mother's coffin would be, there was a shape. Not fully formed, a suggestion of limbs. Translucent tissue stretched across a lattice of root and soil. Within it, faint flickers of movement pulsed, like fireflies trapped in amber. My breath caught. "Are those templates?" Michikoto said quietly. The ants moved along the surface of the structure, delivering pale fragments, embedding them into the growing mass. It was not a corpse. It was not a nest. It was a scaffold. I took a step closer. "Stop," Michikoto said. His tone was not raised, but it was final. Before I could respond, a voice echoed softly from one of the adjoining tunnels. "You shouldn't be down here," was a woman's voice, gentle, concerned. A figure stepped into the chamber from the darkness. She appeared in her early 30s, hair dark and loosely braided, skin pale but not sickly. She wore simple work clothes, dusted lightly with soil. Her eyes moved first to me, then to Michikoto. "You're going to collapse it," she said calmly. "It's unstable." I stared at her. "Who are you?" "My name is Sylvana," she said. The name felt soft in the chamber. "I've been trying to warn the constables. They won't listen." Her voice trembled slightly. "They think it's just ants." Michikoto did not respond. He watched her feet, her hands, her breathing. "You live nearby?" I asked. "Yes," she said quickly. "My family's land was flooded when the dam went up. I've been studying the soil since." That felt plausible, reasonable. She stepped closer to the structure in the center. "You shouldn't disturb it," she said. "It's regulating something." "Regulating what?" I asked. She hesitated. "Pressure." Michikoto's voice cut in smoothly. "How many children?" he asked. Sylvana blinked. "I don't know what you mean." "The children," he repeated. "How many?" Her gaze flicked toward me. Confusion, almost indignation, crossed her face. "I'm not involved in that," she said softly. "That's the constable's lie." I felt heat rise in my chest. "You think she's responsible?" I asked Michikoto. He did not answer me. He stepped closer and lowered the obsidian tool toward the ground between himself and Sylvana. The ants diverted immediately. A clean boundary formed. Sylvana's breath hitched, only slightly. "You're frightening them," she said. "Who?" Michikoto asked. "The ants. They are not frightened." Silence. The chamber seemed to lighten around us. I looked from one to the other. "She's trying to help," I said. "She warned us." "Did she?" Michikoto asked without looking at me. Sylvana took another careful step. Her movements were smooth, controlled, almost too controlled. "I've been trying to keep this contained," she said quietly. "If you destroy it, it will spread." "Spread how?" Michikoto asked. Her jaw tightened for half a second before relaxing. "You don't understand the system," she said. No, he agreed. I understand imbalance. The faint flickers within the central structure pulsed brighter. For a moment, just a moment, I thought I saw something within it that resembled a small hand. I stepped forward instinctively. Michikoto's hand caught my wrist. Firm, not painful. Do not approach the scaffold, he said. Scaffold. That word landed like a stone. Sylvena's eyes darkened. You would kill something that is only trying to live? She said. And you would build a body from stolen forms? He replied calmly. The air shifted. I turned sharply to him. You're wrong, I said. You don't know that. He finally looked at me fully. I know, he said evenly, because she is not breathing. Sylvena's chest rose and fell, slowly, regularly, human. But when I focused, there was no condensation in the cool chamber air. No scent of sweat, no warmth radiating outward. Just the faint smell of sap and soil. The ants began climbing the scaffold faster now. The flickers within it synchronized. Sylvena's expression softened. You don't have to do this, she said to me. Not to him, to me. And for the first time I felt the split. Between hunter and hunted. Between survival and morality. Between killing and understanding. Michikoto shifted the oilcloth bundle from his back. Unwrapped it halfway. I glimpsed the crossbow within. Dark wood, obsidian inlays. He did not raise it. Not yet. She is not finished, he said quietly. Sylvena's gaze sharpened. I am right here, she said. Yes, he replied. You are. And beneath our feet, the earth pulsed. You want them back, Sylvena said softly. The ants reached my boots. Cold, weightless, precise. They climbed in disciplined waves, slipping beneath fabric, tracing seams, mapping the landscape of my body with unbearable delicacy. Not biting, not piercing, scraping, lifting. My breath stuttered as they crested my ribs and spread beneath my blouse. Every instinct screamed at me to claw at myself, to tear them off, to run blind into the tunnel. I did none of those things, because the child within the scaffold was moving. The ants reached my neck, my jaw, my eyelids. They crossed my lips. I tasted soil and salt. I swallowed a scream. They are careful, Sylvena said gently. They do not waste. Waste. The ants descended from me in flowing rivers, each carrying fragments too small to see, but large enough to matter. They converged on the scaffold, embedded the fragments. The membrane shuddered, split. Something slid into Sylvena's waiting arms. Child-sized, flesh-colored, veined faintly with green. Its chest rose sharply. Then again, it cried. The sound struck something ancient inside of me. Human, fragile, terrified. Sylvena held it close, trembling. It stabilizes, she whispered. The child's fingers gripped her shoulder. Thin scratch is opened. Amber sap welled. The ants surged again. covering my arms, my scalp, my face. The sensation was relentless, crawling across every inch of exposed skin. My nerves flared white hot with the need to scream. Beside me, Michikoto stood unmoving as the swarm covered him, too. "They are sampling viable surface protein," he said evenly. I hated him in that moment for the calm in his voice. Sylvena's eyes found mine. "I can return them," she said, "one by one intact, but I need exchange. I need continuity." "You need biomass," Michikoto replied. "I need survival," she snapped, and the chamber vibrated. The ants intensified, their scraping sharper now, faster. The child's crying faltered. Its skin flickered faintly, the green threads brightening and dimming in irregular pulses. Michikoto moved. The crossbow was already in his hands. He drew. The ants surged up the weapon, coating the bowstring, crawling over the obsidian bolt. He did not shake them off. "Release the swarm," he said. Sylvena's jaw tightened. "Then it dies," she whispered. "Not necessarily." She looked at him then. Really looked. He fired. The bolt struck her below the collarbone. The impact was soft. She gasped. Sap burst from the wound in a thick amber arc. The child wailed. The sap darkened. Red threaded through it. Blood. Sylvena staggered, but did not fall. The ants recoiled from the obsidian in a widening circle. The chamber quieted. Her breath trembled. "I cannot root here," she said hoarsely. "No," Michikoto agreed. She looked at him with something close to fear. "I will fragment." "Yes." The child in her arms flickered violently now, its features shifting, sliding between faces too quickly to hold. "I do not want extinction," she said. It was not an accusation. It was a plea. "There is a preserved forest east of the ridge," Michikoto said. "Old tributaries, protected exchange networks, untouched by the dam." Her eyes sharpened. "Untouched?" "By treaty," he said. "For now." She swayed. The ants hesitated, uncertain without direction. "I will go," she said. The words came slowly, deliberately. "But the child remains." "No," Michikoto replied. The child convulsed in her arms. Its skin thinned. I saw bone beneath for a moment. Not fully form, then flesh reknit over it. "You cannot sustain it alone," he continued. "It is a composite. It requires distributed input." Sylvena's fingers tightened. "It is proof," she said. "Proof that I can adapt." "It is unstable." She looked at me then, not at him. "At least one," she said quietly. "Let me keep one. I will not build another. I will not sample again." The ants were no longer climbing us. They hovered, waiting. Michikoto's gaze did not waver. "If you keep it," he said slowly, "you anchor your survival to a human template." "Yes." "You will begin sampling again." She did not answer. Silence stretched. The child's crying weakened. Its eyes fluttered. The green threading dimmed. "I can alter it," she whispered. "Reduce the human expression. Make it more inhuman." That will not stabilize it, Michikoto said. I stepped forward. Is there a way? I asked him. He did not look at me. He looked at her wound. Sap and blood mingling. You require reciprocal exchange, he said to Sylvana. Not extraction, a network that consents. Not parasitism, mutualism. Her brow furrowed. Explain. In the Easter Preserve, there are researchers, he continued. Botanists, geneticists. They cultivate living seed banks, hybrid orchards, managed exchange systems. She inhaled sharply. You would expose me? I would integrate you. The word hung heavy. Under condition, he added. Her eyes narrowed. You root there, he said. You bind to the soil. You cease mimicry. You allow monitored exchange. In return, he gestured to the child. We attempt stabilization using non-human template. Her breath hitched. You would help? I would prevent recurrence. The child's fingers twitched weakly. Sylvana closed her eyes. The ants froze, every one of them. The chamber went utterly still. Then she spoke. Sylvana swayed, clutching the child as sap and blood slid down her ribs. I accept relocation, she said, voice thin, but it lives. The child convulsed in her arms. Its features slipped. Thomas's brow, Morella's mouth, a stranger's chin, before dissolving to something too fluid to hold. It cannot stabilize without exchange, Michikoto said. I will not abandon it, she whispered. The ants trembled in place, suspended between command and chaos. I felt the cool brush of air along my shoulders then. The shawl. I had worn it without thinking. My mother's forest shawl, dyed in river indigo and bark brown, woven from fibers harvested before the dam drowned the lower groves. She used to wear it while weaving, said it kept her in conversation with the trees. Sylvana's gaze flicked upward suddenly, not to my face, to my shoulders. Her breath hitched. What is that? She asked. I hadn't known she could sense it. It's just... I stopped. It wasn't just anything. The shawl smelled faintly of cedar resin and something older, something damp and green. Michikoto noticed the shift. Remove it, he said quietly. Not a command, an assessment. I hesitated, only a second. Then I pulled it free. The air struck my skin where the ants had crawled, hypersensitive and raw. My nerves screamed in relief and phantom sensation. I stepped toward Sylvana. Michikoto's hand caught my wrist. Slowly, he said. The ants recoiled slightly from the shawl's trailing fringe. Not violently, but with recognition. Sylvana's eyes widened. Her pupils dilated until nearly black. I know this weave, she whispered. I moved closer. The child in her arms flickered violently again, the green veining beneath its skin flashing like lightning beneath thin clouds. I draped the shawl over both of them. The effect was immediate, not explosive, settled. The ants stilled, every one of them. The vibration in the soil shifted pitch. Sylvana gasped, not in pain, in recognition. The sap bleeding from her wound slowed. The red darkening receded slightly, thickening back toward amber. The child's skin steadied. The flickering faces dissolved into a single, softer configuration. Not any specific child, but a general human template. Its breathing evened. Its crying softened into quiet, shallow breaths. Sylvana closed her eyes. "These fibers," she murmured, "they carry intact exchange." Michikotl crouched, watching closely. "Explain," he said. She swallowed. "They were woven before the flood," she said faintly. "The root net still spoke through them." I felt my throat tighten. "My mother made it." Sylvana opened her eyes again and looked at me. Truly looked at me. "She preserved more than memory," she said. The ants began rearranging themselves along the cave wall, no longer swarming, no longer harvesting, organizing, stabilizing. Michikotl studied the shawl carefully. He extended one finger and pressed the obsidian tip lightly to the fabric. The ants did not recoil. He nodded once. "It carries viable signature," he said. Sylvana's shoulders sagged. "With this," she whispered, "I can remain cohesion until relocation." "And the child?" I asked. She looked down at it. "It will require integration," she said. "It cannot remain fully human." Michikotl's voice was calm. "It should not." Sylvana did not argue. The child's green threading now ran in steady, faint lines beneath its skin, no longer flashing. Its fingers curled into the shawl's fibers, holding. I felt a strange surge of protectiveness. "Will it remember?" I asked. "Not as you do," Sylvana said softly. The cave was quiet now. The ants moved in measured lanes once more. Michikotl stood. "You root east," he said. "Under supervision, no mimicry, no extraction." Sylvana nodded. "I bind to the soil," she said. "And if you break terms," he added evenly, "I will return." She met his gaze. "I know." I felt suddenly cold without the shawl on my shoulders, but I did not ask for it back. Sylvana noticed. "You give this freely?" she asked me. It was not a trick, it was reverent. "Yes," I said. Sylvana closed her eyes again, clutching the child closer. "Then I will not waste it." The earth beneath her began to soften. Roots curved upward, not trapping, but supporting. She descended slowly, wrapped in the forest my mother had preserved in thread. The child's breathing remained steady. The last thing visible was the edge of the shawl disappearing beneath the soil. Then, stillness. The ants resumed their quiet work, but no longer frantic, no longer desperate. Above us, faint cries echoed through the night. Children returning home, alive. Michikotl adjusted the crossbow at his shoulder. "You have altered the outcome," he said. I stared at the place where the earth had closed. "My mother did," I replied. For the first time, something like approval flickered in his eyes. "Yes," he said. When we made our way back down the tunnel, it felt different, like it was no longer holding its breath for us. When we made our way out of the tunnel, Michikotl let out a deep breath and began to pat his body down, brushing and itching himself like crazy while he tried to scrub the feeling of ants off him. "Xolotl's teeth, I am going to need a loofah and a bath after that," he said as he patted away the phantom ants and the harvest of his flesh. "How the fuck did you stay calm in there?" I asked him as I scratched my hair, fearful that there may be a stray ant in my hair. but Sylvaina's ants all left with no trace on my skin. Michikoto stared at me for a moment as if he was deciding if I was worthy of an answer, as he finally deigned to answer me. Fear is a powerful weapon for your enemies. Staying calm in the face of danger lets you see what they want to keep hidden from you. Just because someone appears calm doesn't mean that they aren't panicking. I learned a long time ago that I can panic when the danger is over. Panicking while you are in danger just makes things worse. It's a skill like any other. Okay. Now what? I asked him. When the children were found again, the constabulary just did a few musings about the children being returned from the school. The parents didn't question that too much. Asking constables questions tend to get painful answers. Still, released by Sylvaina's hold showed that she didn't kill anyone, but she wasn't going to let the children go. And as for the children's stories, all that mattered is it was a good thing no one tried to chase away the strange animals that appeared when the children disappeared. I got an email from Michikoto letting me know he would be visiting Polizzo again, a sort of follow-up. I met him at a local barbecue restaurant. He was sitting outside, and he wasn't alone. As I sat with him, his wife introduced herself, Sochi, while he sat at the table with her. I could barely recognize him. He had his hair tied in the same way, but he was dressed like any other civilian in town. He was smiling nearly constantly while near his wife. At any time his wife spoke, he stared at her like a teenager longing after a crush. At first, the conversation was about everyday normal things. The results of the pits game, how different cuts of meat had wildly different flavors, and even how he had found a flower shop that had a bouquet for Sochi. Then, it was a single question from Sochi. How are the children doing? And when she asked that, Michikoto was no longer an enamored husband who worshipped his wife. He was once again a serious hunter, as his face turned stoic, and with Herculean effort, he looked away from his wife as he watched me for an answer. So far, they're doing pretty good. A few nightmares, a few leftover habits from not being human for a while. Everyone is reconnected and eager to move on. Partially because the kingdom doesn't like to linger. Mostly because no one knows how to even talk about what happened. So it's probably going to be an urban legend at some point. A parable or a fable if we're lucky. I told them as they both nodded, and we were silent for a moment. There are many stories that everyone knows, but no one ever talks about, hoping that an ignored story would become a forgotten story. But the world has a funny way of repeating stories when they're forgotten. Tell me, how did it go with Sylvaina? I asked. Michikoto glanced at Sochi, who nodded in a subtle way before he answered. She is integrating well into the community. She is thriving and her child is growing. They're learning more about her, more and more every day, and she is also learning from them. I do believe that she can thrive without displacing humanity. Michikoto explained. Humans really are the worst, I sighed. And it was Sochi that answered. Humans are like any other monster. They need patience, understanding, and a chance to make the right choice. It was humans that flooded her home. It was humans that built her a new home. It was a human that gave her that shawl. Letting her displace humans wouldn't have brought her home back. And eventually it would have jeopardized her own survival. It could have been a lot worse, Sochi said before we finished our meals and went our separate ways. Maybe we would meet again, or maybe we wouldn't. But they had their path to follow. And I had my own in college.